Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Enterprise Podcast. This show is all about learning together from the best in the industry. We chat with founders, innovators, operators about their stories, the lessons they've learned building their companies, and how are they thinking about the future. The goal is simple: to help us all get a little smarter, sharper, and more limitless together. Hey everyone, this is Zico Fernandes, the host of the Limitless Enterprise Podcast. Today I have Ash Gobindram. He is a CEO and he's a founder of a pretty unique spatial technology solution. With that said, I'll pass it on to Ash. He'll give a brief about himself. Ash, go ahead.
Thank you for having me, Zico. Hi, everyone. I'm Ash Gobindram. I serve as CEO at Kinemeric, and we are a spatial technology company focused on training and learning applications of spatial tech, specifically at the intersection of spatial tech and AI. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we're doing, Zico.
Okay, cool. So we'll get a little bit deeper. So Ash, before we get into the solution, talk to me about what you do over here. What's your role? How do you start this company? What were you doing before? Some beginnings.
Sure. So I've been building software for many years now, since I was a teenager. And, a few years after school, my brother and I actually started a software company called One Arm Bandit. And, we used to do a lot of consulting and building solutions for a lot of third-party companies and helping them develop their tech. At some point, we had grown to about, 300 people with offices in New York and India. And we actually sold our company to a company called Semtrex, which is a public company listed on the NASDAQ. And we went and, we did our work there for 7 years. We helped them, modernize a lot of their software operations and develop some parts of their businesses. And about a year and a half ago, my brother and I and our third partner, Andrew, were very passionate about spatial tech, and we wanted to, fully focus on spatial tech and where we thought were meaningful enterprise applications. So yeah, that's how we started Kinemeric. So we're about a year and a half in now. And today what I do is basically drive a lot of day-to-day as well as, overarching strategy, both on a technology front. And my brother, he leads a lot of our commercial stuff, but I work with him on that. So yeah, and work a lot with Andrew, our third partner, on our creative philosophy, how we approach a lot of the interesting problems we come across. We're working really in a lot of uncovered and uncharted territory today. So to us, our philosophy is very important, and staying true to it in building, what we like to call magical products and magical experiences.
Okay, I like the way how you explain that, but can you unveil the curtain for us? What is spatial tech, and why should people be interested in it?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
Things that you guys are doing over there?
Yeah, here I am geeking out, so spatial tech, you may see some variant definitions across, technologist to technologist, but the way I see spatial tech is that, we've reached a point where technology is matured enough now where we can actually bring computing into 3D spaces and interact with computing in, virtual 3D spaces. And, that can come in many flavors, from, a totally canned, AR or VR experience to something much more in-depth, like a big manufacturing facility that has a bunch of deployed sensors that can speak to a corresponding headset or application on a headset. And you could get, very rich data visualizations of the way your facility is operating and where there may be problems. So spatial computing really is the ability with computers today to bring any sorts of virtual objects into your own space or teleport yourself to any virtual space in the world.
Okay. So what's the interface like for the end user? Is it a goggle? Is it a screen? Or is it...
Sure, yeah.
Holograms? I don't know if holograms are there right now.
Yes, great questions. I believe the purest form is obviously a headset, ultimately what people hope will be glasses. But you can interact with spatial computing with more traditional kinds of mediums, like, a slab or like a tablet computer. So they do support AR features, and you can interact with these AR applications. But really, you're still looking and interacting with them like almost in a magic window, which is not the best experience. When you use a headset, you really get all of the benefits of a spatial computing interface. And those interfaces vary a great deal from bringing traditional 2D paradigms into AR or VR, spatial computing as we call it, to really uncovering new and novel kinds of interaction patterns with real 3D objects, or virtual 3D objects. I'm calling them real, but they're sort of real. And so that's a lot of the work that we work on today is like balancing, what is a good opportunity or a good interaction to keep in a more traditional kind of paradigm, or where do you break out and kind of find that what you are afforded by the spatial computing mediums today is an opportunity to create a new interaction pattern or kind of reflect what you would do in real life in a spatial sense.
Okay. Wow. So that seemed like pretty complex tech, and there's also these areas are highly nascent. They're growing, and it's something that's gonna, I don't know, it's gonna be the future, right? People are talking about the next form of compute, and it should be omnipresent. And so omnipresent means it should be close to the eyes, so you can interact with it anytime you want. And maybe
Sure.
that's what Meta is also doing, and maybe that's where you guys also are leading to.
I think that's a big bet that Meta has. I'm not one of the VR fundamentalists that thinks that it's going to be the only computing medium of the future. I think we've actually reached this era of, kind of decentralized kind of computing mediums where you'll interact with a voice layer in your car, and maybe you'll have a headset on for part of the day for a meeting. Maybe sometimes you will go back to a more traditional tablet where that's a good use case. And as the cost of computers have traditionally come down, I think that's more realistic. I do think it is the most important computing medium of the next couple of decades. And somebody like Jaron Lanier, who is the father of this era of VR computing, you could argue, would say it's the final computing medium in a lot of ways, because there's so much work to be done in VR, even what we've done today. Even though these experiences are already very rich and very meaningful, we've only scratched the surface of where we can ultimately get that.
Yeah, I think that's what I also felt. It's still the beginning, but it's a major shift in how we interact with
Crazy
things.
though, because I think the earliest headsets, I believe, were made in the 60s, right? I think there's a famous old headset called the Sword of Damocles, where it was so heavy they used to have to suspend it from the university research lab ceiling, and then people would actually put it on. And there were lots of little victories on the path to where we are today. There was the gentleman I just mentioned, Jaron Lanier. He actually had a funded VR company in the 80s, and they were doing, some local but multiplayer simulations, very, very simplistic graphics. And there were some use cases for it back then. Really, I think in this era with the Oculus Rift and everything Palmer Luckey contributed, to this era of VR, the devices are a lot more meaningful, and they're just becoming real, where you can drop them into an enterprise and you can find real use cases for them that perhaps afford opportunities that weren't there previously, because no tech could kind of answer those questions. Yeah. So it's been a long journey. I think the mobile phone definitely helped accelerate this a lot. We're finally there, I think. We have very meaningful VR and AR experiences today. I spend a lot of time in VR and AR weekly right now, both professionally and on a pleasure or personal level. Watch a lot of movies in my Vision Pro. So I think that the tech is very, very compelling, and it has a very real place in our lives moving forward.
That's good to know, because people are working for many years, 80 plus years right now, and we have just reached where all the technologies are sort of like maybe the S curves of all, and we know that will all work out now. It does seem like it's going to work out now.
Yeah, I think from where we're at, there's some the Quest 3 is a great device. I love the Quest 3, and the Vision Pro is also a great device. I know that Apple announced a minor update last week to the Vision Pro, so it's got an M5 chip in it now, which is super exciting. But these are really, really great experiences already. I would argue the Vision Pro is probably the best workstation experience you could have for deep work today. You kind of just put it on, you mirror your Mac screen, blow it up to 200 inches, spin your dial, and you're, on top of a mountain, in Hawaii, and you can just zone in and take care of that deep work. There's really nothing like it, man.
Oh man, I haven't tried it out. I should try it out. I'll be in touch. I'll need some specific inputs from you to try that out. And I think I'll definitely have a lot of stuff going around and recommending it to folks if it turns out really well.
For sure. I always tell people, what, go to the app.
And these are all experience based, so you need to experience it to really know it. You don't get it otherwise, right?
I think it's really hard to kind of understand what the Vision Pro is capable of. the demo at the Apple Store will give you a good idea, but
Yeah.
until you really interact with it, like, and find your footing with it, like I find myself going and reaching for it when I want to do deep work, or like I'm working on a big spreadsheet. Like I'm like, you know what, forget this extra monitor right now. Where's my Vision Pro? And I go and grab it and I make sure I work in there, because there's nothing, it's a superior experience. So,
Okay, that's good. So even spreadsheets can be done with Vision Pro. So that's good.
oh yeah,
So
100%.
then there's essentially nothing left, right? Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. Let's change gears. Let's try to understand. Maybe you talked a lot about the product, where the industry also to quite a bit, the technology that you're using. Talk about the customers that you think, what is the solution that you're working on right now? And who
Yeah,
does it
sure.
serve? What are the customers that it typically solves?
Sure. So I'll give you a little bit more context first, okay? So coming into Kinemeric and our focus on spatial tech, we've traditionally consulted a lot of organizations on how to use spatial tech and how to adapt it to their organization. So, we've done many flavors, but really where we see the most meaningful value today is in the ability to create believable humans within, either an augmented reality experience or a virtual reality experience. And these virtual humans can be used for a multitude of training and learning scenarios, and they could take the role of, a subordinate, a coworker, a potential customer. So that's really what a lot of our focus has been on, and what the Kinemeric platform is today. So the Kinemeric platform today is a library of modular components that we use to implement solutions for our customers that are essentially believable simulations in any one of these, these areas that we just spoke about. So one of the first deployments we've done is basically in a sales use case, where we've created a robust simulation where our partner organization, which is a mid-sized construction company from the Midwest in the US, is able to put their sales trainees into these scenarios and have them go meet believable artificial customers in their own home, start to refine their actual sales pitch across the various phases of the sales cycle, and not only go through the pitch, but also get analytical data back on a flywheel for themselves. And really, they can keep on doing this to refine their overall approach to their sales pitch. Each customer that they interact with within, this believable human experience varies, right? And while there are rails to the conversation and particular goals that are looking to be met, our implementation and the way we fine-tuned our models has allowed, these customers to have very free-formed conversations. So we're keeping these sales guys on their toes. And what's really interesting to us is that as we've deployed this now, we've started to see, these sales trainees actually close deals like 2 to 3 weeks earlier than they were doing previously. So that's a little bit as to what we're doing. So today it's a proprietary library that we use to do implementations for our customers. But over the next 6 months, we've been working in the background on a lighter version that's entirely platformized, where our partners and our customers will have a great deal of ability to manipulate these experiences on their own, and eventually at some point next year start to create their own experiences.
That's good. So I think you explained the training use case, and it's where all of AI is about replacing humans. This is one where you make humans better.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of our mission. We see, obviously, there is the path of finding ways to use AI to replace humans, but for us at Kinemeric, we want to find ways to make AI be a 10x multiplier on humans. And today, role-playing is a tremendously valuable training and learning experience for enterprise or mid-sized organizations. But really, a lot of organizations have trouble scaling that role play training. Either they don't have enough trainers, have the infra to support it, there's too many trainees. So really, it's in a lot of cases, even in a sales training kind of scenario, and I know we're talking a lot about sales, there's other applications here, but they essentially burn the leads. That's how they train, right? And find some industries, leads are not terribly expensive. But in some, leads cost $300, $400, $500, and there's no other way to train these people aside from burning the leads. So really, this spatial tech now affords, a role play experience that just wasn't possible before. And even if you could do it, you couldn't scale it in the same way. You can't you can't bring a trainer home with you, after you have
Yeah.
dinner and you want to do another 2 sessions. You can't make Bob stop by after dinner to role play with you, but you could, unpack your headset from your work backpack or whatever it is, go in there, give it, an hour or so, get 2 nice reports of analytical data on how your performance was, harden yourself in your unique experience, and go out there tomorrow and be a better salesperson. And to us, we find that to be tremendously meaningful and valuable. And the
So
crazy thing too is that, a lot of these people, they actually enjoy this. Like there's something about the element of being in spatial, interacting with a believable human that has some rails, but has a lot of autonomy in the way it behaves, that, people, they see it less as training, and there's an enjoyment factor there, and it's really remarkable.
yeah, I think you gamified it a bit then.
What was that?
Did you gamify it a bit, little bit? People like interacting and like the virtual world, not only for sales training and getting better, but also just the experience of it.
I mean, I think there's a lot of hesitancy in
Yeah.
trying spatial technology for some reason or another. I've talked about this in the past and, some conversations, but I am old enough to remember growing up here in the United States, and there was still this like artifact contingency of people who were in their 40s and 50s who would proudly say, I don't type. But like, why are you proud of that? It's almost like this
Yeah.
insecurity, and they present it as a confidence, like, and I think that that's maybe an element of what we're seeing. Like me as a millennial, I've grown up interacting with laptops and desktop computers since I was 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
old, right? Like these are form factors that I'm very comfortable
Used
with,
to.
right? I can get my email done. I could do a chat like with this with you, and it does the job, but fax machines also used to do the job in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it was superior. And I
Yeah.
think there's a bit of a hesitancy in learning something new for people, right? And getting out of your comfort zone. And I think that's what VR and AR are reckoning with a little bit, even though, if you put on an Apple Vision Pro and, it's a little bit expensive, but if you have the means to afford it, there's undoubtedly no better workstation experience. But it's going to take more evangelists and more real use cases and maybe more interactions like in a corporate environment, like the training that we're doing today, for people to say, oh, wow, this is really meaningful. Maybe I should have one of these at home. Because if you and I were sitting in the Vision Pro right now and having this conversation, it would literally feel like we're in the same room. Yes, this is a great conversation. We're talking. I feel your presence. You feel mine. But there is a different level of transcendence when you're in a spatial technology that's well designed and well executed, like the Vision Pro, and having a conversation like this. It's almost as good as being in the same room. And I grew up here in the United States. I was born here, but my parents were first generation, immigrant. My grandparents all lived in Singapore growing up. And, we used to have standing Saturday morning calls with them. And I always think about, like, if the Vision Pro had existed, back in 1991 or 1992, like, I think we would have, wanted to use that tech so we could be in the same room as our grandparents. We got to see them like once a year, So yeah, it's a little bit cost prohibitive now. But when that comes down, I think that in situations like that and in use cases like that, there's really going to be no substitute, and slowly people will adopt. Like video chatting, for example, has been around since I think the first video chatting solutions came out in the 60s or 70s, okay? And they were really expensive, and I think you needed to get it directly through AT&T before they broke up Ma Bell and all of that. And I remember being a little kid, and in the Hemmerker Schlemmer catalog, they would have, video conferencing, phones and stuff. But it wasn't really until FaceTime came out, and it was easy and, it was cost effective, that video chats took over. Now people prefer video chats over a phone conversation in a lot of cases, right?
It's the
And I think
default
that,
right now.
yeah, and I think that's where we're going to head. I think that right now the video chat is the old phone call. It'll still be around, but if you can, you will have a spatial chat in the future. And
Yeah.
as the tech becomes more cost effective, as the meta avatars look better, you're going to start to see more and more of it, undoubtedly.
Wow, I like how you painted the history of different technologies. So you said video replaced audio, and you can see that everybody at least prefers video first, then audio, and maybe in the future it could be VR, AR over video also, because that's it will be more realistic. We just want something that's more realistic ultimately, and you want to feel the presence of the other person and
Absolutely.
with all of your senses. I think that's where it basically goes, and those tech enable that. It's only the
Absolutely.
cost that has to be down, and these devices have to be commonplace. I think that's the tech
Correct.
that has to be there.
And in some places, the UX needs to be better. You need to be able to
Yeah.
put on the headset and be in the video call in like sub 3 seconds. If you need to
Yes.
wait 45 seconds, a minute for the device to start up, and then the app to launch, you're going to lose people. And
Yeah.
the Vision Pro has done a really good job of this. You can pick up the device, put it on, and be an experience in sub 10 seconds, right? It's like, it's almost there.
Okay, that's good. So let's talk about. So we talked about the solutions that you're offering, and there's so much scope for this ultimately, because if this is going to be the default and it's about improving people, right? So I can see coaching use cases for this other than sales. Everybody would need
Absolutely.
virtual coaches to get better. You see the coaching and the teaching industry. They say that it's going to be a $2 trillion industry by 2030. It's an industry that people are, there's at least $2 billion per day, at least that's getting spent right now. So you can see this being a big part of that also, virtual coaching. And you could see AI already doing text-based coaching for people right now, but then this could be another leg up where AI and plus AR technologies and spatial technologies can help make that more realistic. You can,
Correct.
yeah.
We're actually starting to explore in the early stages of finding the common threads, right? And starting to round out the platform so that we can actually start to track the real world interactions that occur thereafter, and then create, a synthesis of the data to draw, any sorts of findings or trends that we may, find in the comparison of how they're performing in the real world and how they're performing in training sessions. So yeah, absolutely, man. Like,
Okay.
that's
I like to talk about when we're talking about the future product, we'll just brainstorm a little bit. That will be interesting. That will be a
sure.
nice area to talk about that. Yeah. But before going there, we need to talk about some things in the current state. So you talked about the outcomes that you're able to achieve for your customers and where the tech is right now. Maybe talk to me about for you, what are the current challenges for you running the business, creating this tech, or even having these cycles? You have to go through enough repetitions. What's going on right now at your company? What are the
Yeah.
challenges right now?
For us, I think the challenges are, and they're good challenges, but for us, it's continuing to try to raise the bar on where we can get our believable humans and what the right balance is. We mostly deploy on Quest 3 headsets today, which is obviously a great experience, but there's limited compute power. Ultimately, these things run on Snapdragons. They're like mobile phone-based processors. Ultimately, continuing to push the envelope and finding that right balance on what is a believable human, that continues to be one of our challenges for sure. But a good challenge, and one that I expect to last for a long time. We want to continuously, reflect and inflect upon where we're at and be highly objective with ourselves on where we can push things with the tech as it continuously improves.
Okay.
So that's definitely one of the challenges. I would say the other challenge is also, the overall climate and tone of tech and, the industry over the last 10 years is go really fast, break things fast, do everything in this kind of, rushed manner. Done is better than perfect, etc. And I want to resist those things. I think there's not enough value put on taking your time and being very sure and crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Now, you can't do that with everything, but where you're bringing, your expertise to the table in order to, formulate and build a product, you want to really be careful with those aspects of what you're building. And I think, especially living in this, around this tech industry the last 15, 20 years, I think that's a little bit of a challenge sometimes, is to forcibly slow yourselves down and, make thoughtful decisions. I think that's definitely a challenge sometimes. And not just for me, right? Like for people on our team as well. Like people want to be busy bees and they want to go, 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 go. But sometimes, it's, in my opinion, I think it's better to wait, strategize, and go in an appropriate fashion at the appropriate time. And I think that's sometimes the challenge today.
So how do you decide where you want to spend more time on and where you should not? I mean, where it's better to just be done better than perfect?
So I think I have a really good, my partners, Lucky and Andrew, it's three of us who basically, run Kinemeric today. I think that, we've worked together for a very long time, almost 10 years now. I've worked with Lucky for almost 20 years. So we know our respective strengths and weaknesses, and we're able to balance each other. So largely, there's particular areas I'm very, very, kind of interested in that we're, pushing the technology or pushing the tool set or pushing, the art pipeline. So I'll start a new initiative and I'll be involved there. But in a lot of the day-to-day stuff, Lucky or Andrew will come to me where they need my thoughts on something, or they need my input, or they need my support. So I'm good to have a good balance with my partners, and we're able to quickly, sniff out, what's an important thing for who, and who should be addressing it, and who should be supporting. So largely I talk to them a lot every day. We have great communication. We spend a lot of time on Huddle together, just talking about the company, the product, where we're at, what our next moves are. So through those conversations, I'm able to understand where I need to spend my time. And, sometimes it's really boring stuff like, a lot of accounting over the last couple of weeks, which is not a great use of time for Lucky or Andrew, but sometimes it is finding, that next move for us on the animation front, or how we should be changing the way we're training our own models internally today, or fine-tuning them. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. I think so. You almost say, is that like an R&D phase? Me as an architect, one of the things I resonated with you where, there are people who, it's almost like you have to put the reins and make people slow down. When you work in a startup environment, you see people all the way on one side, they just want to go all the time. And then me coming in as a leader, as working in enterprises and stuff, it's all about trying to slow them down a little bit, try to see some edge cases, try to see, is this the right one? Do your options analysis, decide which way you want to go, and see which one gets you better or faster. It keeps your options open. Depends on what's important. It all varies. But, this is where I think it's almost like an architect's mindset is probably helpful.
Absolutely.
And you don't have that thought out in chat GPTs or in GPTs right now. They just talk about doing the work, but what work, when, options, that thinking is not there yet. Maybe it will be there. I have to play around with the higher model or create an architect model for me.
It's helpful with a thoughtful operator, right? I feel like you can yield good information from Grok or from GPT. You get in trouble when the operator wants it to do all of the work, right? Like it's good as a fact surfacer or a fact finder and a comparison tool. But yeah, there's a lot of architecture work, and a lot of it is, there's not ready literature on, the kinds of things that we want to tie together, and, how do you get the latency down and make it, a nice and flowy conversation. So, it's a back and forth with our team members. We do a lot of R&D. We do a lot of experimentation. We're downloading a lot of, LLM models, a lot of SLM models, fine-tuning them, fine-tuning them for different use cases, and, understanding how they behave, how their performance is, what might be a good use case for it. So yeah, there's a lot of R&D in what we do. And beyond that, because we're not simply interacting with models, there's a whole 3D world that's built on top of what the model is doing and saying in a lot of cases. So a lot of it is the orchestration layer. And, how does that orchestration layer interact with the SLMs and LLMs to, create that believable experience for users? So a lot of R&D, Zico, without a doubt. And I love that stuff. Varun on our team out of Bangalore, he spends a lot of time on our R&D. He's our resident experimenter. So yeah, we love that stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's all about, so, I like what you said. You have to talk to people. You have to understand. You do a lot of hurdles to figure this thing out. It's really because there isn't a roadmap, right? You have to collectively come up with that roadmap and that decision-making framework for this thing, because you guys are pushing the envelope on most of these things.
For sure. On one side, yes, there is sort of not a roadmap on some things, but there is definitely an overarching roadmap, right? There's major flagpoles that we want to hit, and we've achieved each of them. Now, sometimes the exact means and approach to hit that flagpole, and perhaps how many nights and weekends we're going to put in to hit that flagpole is a little subjective. So yeah, there's definitely an element of the unknown, especially because things are evolving so fast. There's new models coming out almost on a daily basis, and across the tool set, right? Not only on the text generation, but, on voice to text, text to voice, etc. There's a lot of activity that can change the way we making our decisions, in the middle of a build. So there's definitely an element of the unknown, but we try to drive for specific flagpoles, and if we end up being a little bit short of where we're at, that's fine. But we wanna continue to drive because this is all happening very, very fast, and I'm sure we're not the only people with the idea approach that we have today. As much as we can harden our position in the market over the next 18 to 24 months, that's our objective.
Okay, that's good. Just talk to me about, so we talked about the product side, that's the major focus right now. How are you getting your customers or growth around this time? Are you focused more on that aspect also? Is it product for a few customers, or where are you right now on that part? On building the business, I'll say, right? There's building the tech and then building a business part. So maybe talk about building business.
So this is going to sound a little weird, because I've had a conversation like this recently, but right now we're not actively pursuing a ton of new customers, okay? We're selectively choosing partners and customers that we think are good candidates for our tech. And in a large amount of cases, there's no lead generation per se being done or traditional kinds of lead gen. Because we've been in the industry for so long, we've been working in VR for more than a decade now. We have a pretty good network, and within the VR and AR world, a fair amount of people, know the kinds of solutions and the kinds of things that we do at Kinemeric. So people do come to us, but right now we want to be careful about how many customers we take on as we continue to refine our tech and get our learnings. So that's kind of how we're approaching things right now, Zico.
That's fair. Talk to me about the future. What do you see as things that you have to do in the next 6 to 12 months?
Sure.
You talked to me about a little bit about the product. We talked about it earlier, but just reel it into something briefly.
Sure. So a big part of the challenge in what we do is creating really impactful and valuable, spatial experiences it's really hard, right? And it takes a lot of time, and in a lot of cases it takes a lot of money. And a big part and component of that is the art and the environments and all of that and the things that come along with that, right? The animations, the humanoids, etc. So today, the Kinemeric platform is a library of modular components that we put together for our clients. But as I mentioned earlier, the goal over the next 6 months is to do a lighter version that's entirely self-serve platformized for our customers. Okay, the more in-depth simulations will still require an implementation phase, and I think that will, unless there's some really meaningful AI-based tools that help us jumpstep a bunch of things in the next year, I think that will continue to be a going reality of what we do. But really building the first incarnation of the platform, which we're already doing in the background today, and bringing that to market and getting mid-size and more smaller businesses on board and affording them the opportunity to use this tech as well is really important to us. And then continuing to take on the right larger implementations with the right partners that yield the most knowledge and the most learnings for building the product over the longer term.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're focused on over the next 6 to 12 months is building our own self-serve platform for those small to mid-sized businesses, and then finding the right accounts and the right partners to do those mid-sized to larger implementations.
Yeah. And so the mid-size to larger, I think both of these segments will help you refine the product some more. One is on the self-service side, and the other is more on what other new capabilities you want to build out. So
Absolutely.
A lot of things out there.
Absolutely. I think, we're learning constantly, even, in the demos that we do for, people that we know who are perhaps not, customers or potential customers or even friends and family. I think because, like you said, the tech is so nascent, every time we watch somebody in there and we see a session, we're learning things. lot of learnings to be had over the next 12 to 24 months, without a doubt.
Okay. Now, for the self-service part, do you think it will be as easy as people building agents nowadays? Because you see, there are some agent building platforms. I don't know. You could have low-code agent building platform like
Absolutely.
Anytime, right? So it's somewhere where a non-techie can do it, or something like it's code-wise, like Crew AI. That's another agent building where you can build multi-agent system. That's
Absolutely.
coding involved. So how do you see this? What's your vision?
If I do my job well, and we've been working on it in the background, you're absolutely dead on, right? We don't want people even interacting with low code, right? Low code,
Yeah.
all this blueprinting for somebody who's not technical is not a lot of fun. So how do we kind of synthesize what we know is important in the experiences for any given organization and create like a very, very intuitive panel that allows them to interact with it in a way that they're used to. Radio buttons, drop downs,
Yeah.
input fields, selectors. And that's kind of where we're at. That's how we see it, Zico. Ultimately, if we have to put a blueprint in front of people and they need to deal with entities, etc., that's not what we think is a good user experience. This needs to be that a professional in their 50s in an HR department would feel comfortable going in there, navigating, and coming out the other side with a meaningful lesson for their employees.
Do you see this just from the future perspective? You talked about sales use cases. What other use cases do you think something like this might be beneficial for? And you talked about use cases also that are role playing, where it's like door knocking, almost at the door where they're meeting the customer. They watch, or like Zoom meetings or training. I'm trying to find what are the usual things that people need
So we're
training
working
for.
working on HR use cases as well,
Okay.
right? There's a lot of awkward and hard conversations to be had in HR, and providing a safe forum to practice giving a disciplinary warning to a subordinate, or attacking a tough problem with your HR manager. These are really, really important use cases that leave a lot of the way that they're handled today. And training for these kinds of use cases in enterprise level organizations leave a lot to be desired. And I think that, reading a binder or going through an online clickable lesson and reading about it or watching a silly video, that's only going to expose you so much. If you could be in a simulation and, practice giving that disciplinary warning, or bringing, awkward or a tough conversation to your HR manager, these are really, really, really important opportunities that could change the way enterprises deal with these things today. And that's, a lot of our interest as well. So we immediately see HR use cases and we're working on those. And then, there's other opportunities as well. I don't want to
Because
give away.
I'm trying to find, when you say other opportunity, I'm trying to find where are big pockets of people, right? So you have service center people also, and then, I'm looking at it from an insurance point of view, claims people also, there's huge over there. Claims
Absolutely.
representation. So those are big pockets of people in large enterprises where something like this, training like this, can really help.
Without a doubt. I think anywhere you have a lot of, knowledge and conversational based kinds of application of your workday is an opportunity for us. And, I leave it like that, but I'll say that, sales is obviously the first vertical we're very focused on, and HR will be number 2.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. Any parting words before we head out? I think you talked about, there's so much in this. It still feels a little abstract in how you're solving these things, right? So maybe I should put some video over here so people are able to relate.
Yeah, sure. I can get you a nice little cut of the Kinemeric platform and how it works. Give me a day and I'll get something over.
Take your time. But that will be good to add in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Get you a nice video.
Yeah, something, because it still feels likewise. People don't know what to expect. We talked about it in the beginning. This is still new. People have to experience it. Maybe seeing some things over here would help people relate.
Absolutely.
And
I'll get you a nice little clip of a mixed reality application of our technology, and then I'll get you a nice clip of a VR application of our technology as well.
okay, wow, okay, yeah. There's so much over there. I have to also learn. So where would you, if people want to get in touch with you, how do people get in touch with you?
Sure. So I'm
Or do you have
reachable.
people getting in touch with you right now?
Yeah, I mean, people can always reach out. I'm
Okay.
just, from a client standpoint, we're just, very selective as to,
Yeah.
the deployments we're doing right now. But I'm reachable at ash at kinemeric.com, kinemeric.com. And then my handle on Twitter or X is just at Ashwin Gobindram.
Okay, cool. I'll add that to the show notes also. And one other question came to my mind. Do you see this? And I should have asked this earlier because whenever there's new tech, there's always a need for implementation partners. Do you see this being completely self-service, or do you think there's gonna be other people that will need to help?
I think for smaller orgs, yeah. I think, like smaller companies, there's definitely,
Self-service.
industrious and experimentative type peoples at, small companies that are looking for ways to jumpstart what they're reckoning with on a day-to-day basis. So
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that when you get to mid-size and larger organizations, then self-serve is maybe not the way, and there's
yeah,
self-serve with an implementation layer. For us, the platform is to really democratize a lot of this tech, especially in
yeah,
a sales use case, to small companies and let them benefit from this. There's a lot of people out there who are suffering on sales, and I
yeah.
think that provides a real opportunity to change things at their organizations, and that's really meaningful to us.
Yeah, I like that. That's a noble calling over there also, especially in this day and age. So that's really good. And you know what? It does seem like there's a lot happening in the platform. Probably another time next year. When are you thinking the platform should be ready to check in with you again?
Hopefully by spring. I think we're gonna want to do a release by spring.
Okay.
So I think May, June-ish.
Mm.
Let's jump on another meeting.
Yeah, I think that will be a good idea. It'll be good to just get, I'll have enough understanding of it after looking at the recordings, but I think at that point the platform will really mature. You'll have a lot more use cases, and it'll be good to circle back about what's happening in your world. Okay.
Certainly, I look forward to
I
it.
think this is good. Okay, with that said, I think we are good. Do you have any other final parting thoughts for anyone?
I mean, I would say, just I was thinking a little bit about this conversation before we jumped on today, is that, AI is obviously very disruptive, and, it causes a lot of people to feel uneasy or scared of the future. It's going to eat all of the jobs. And I think that contextually for me, I think a lot of people probably felt like this in the early 80s when the personal computer revolution was first starting. I think of the graphic design example. Like, graphic design used to be like scissors and rulers and drawing lines and pasting things together, and suddenly you had desktop publishing that changed all of that and appended a lot of the ways people had worked for 30, 40, 50 years before that. So I think that AI is a tool and it's an opportunity, and I think that if you use it and you harness it in the right way, it has the ability to be a force multiplier for you and your team members. So definitely just want to hit that home, and there's other organizations aside from Kinemeric that believe in AI in that kind of train of thought. And, I think that more people just need to be speaking about things from that angle, as opposed to like all the fear mongering and questioning about, whether is this real art or can you use this or whatever it is. I think it's just a tool like anything else for us humans to leverage and utilize. And I think that so as that we do so, then you won't become a dinosaur. But if you don't, and you don't pick up the tools, then workflows are changing and disrupting tremendously. You should learn the respective AI tools and workflows for your particular industry or your pocket of tech. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I think there's just not enough insight, so people haven't played around with it enough. They just hear a lot of things. And yes, flows are getting disrupted, that's a true thing. But value is moving somewhere else. Learn this thing, see where you can leverage. And like you said, it's a force multiplier. I like that mission over here. And it's also you guys are focused on improving humans, right? It's really the force multiplication part of it. Yes, there's a lot of automation that's going to happen. There's intelligence in every layer. Workflows will be more streamlined, more faster. The world is just getting better. So it's good to have that positive outlook and just be on this side and try to play around with all the tools in your vertical.
Absolutely. It's an
Okay.
exciting time.
Yeah, exciting time. Thank you. Thank you, Ash. This has been insightful. Appreciate it. Thank you
Great
so
talking
much.
with you, Zico. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me stop this.